Hello everyone, if you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in the custom script made for Godot to load and unload several banks at one time. You can already do this bank by bank in the integration package. This is really important. The integration package for Wwise was made by Alessandrofama, and we really owe them a big thank you. They are the reason pretty much why I'm here today making this video. That's what makes it possible, pretty much. Thank you again, Guido, for having a look at the script I'm going to try to explain and showcase today. I actually recorded already this part, but then I noticed while I was watching it that it was horrible to see me reading. So yeah, I'm just recording now again. Thank you also to you. Thank you for being here, for watching this video and listening to me. I really hope this will be useful and helpful. I technically could show you how to install the integration, but it's really easy. So I'm going to put the link in the description. Before starting, what is this behind me? We are going to discuss this in another video. But now let's dive in. Nice. I'm not used to making tutorial videos, so please bear with me. So we want to create the script, but first we need a scene because we want to drag the scene into the level. So audio resources and create a new scene, which I'm going to call Wwise Banks Loader. And then I'm going to attach a new script to said scene. Here, new script. You can keep the same name, is fine. And we can delete everything here. We don't need to do anything on tick. And then we don't need anything to do even on ready, because we are going to load the banks on enter tree. If you load the bank on ready and the sounds also start on ready, Wwise is going to give you errors because you're trying to load the bank and play the sounds included in said bank at the same time, which is not good. So we don't need any of those actually. Let's start from a clean slate. Nice. We're going to make arrays of Wwise banks, and also we're going to see how to handle that regardless of how big they are. So let's start by declaring export category, Wwise banks. If you want, you can also do export group, like we're doing here in visibility. We don't actually need that, but if that's the case, if you need this type of, let's say, implementation, that's how you do it. You do export and then group. Anyway, we need export var what? This is the Wwise banks to load. What is this? This is an array. Of what type? It is going to contain Wwise, not events, but banks. Wwise banks to load. And it's here. Nice. Then we have export var Wwise banks to unload. Array Wwise bank. Again, here we go. So when do we want to do this? We probably want to load the SoundBanks on enter tree. So func, if you type enter tree, there it is. For now, we put just pass. And then when do we want to, in case, unload some of the banks, or maybe all of them? We want to do that on exit tree. Again, pass, just for the time being. We want to keep this nice and neat. So I'm going to create two functions. One is going to be Wwise banks loader. We don't want to get anything from this function. We don't want any arguments, so it's fine. So we have the variable, and now we want to do this, the while loop. So while I is not equal to what? To the size of the array. In this case, to the size of the array of the banks we want to load. Because let's say we are going to put actually two sound banks. So which means we have one in 0 and one bank in index 1. So if the integer is 0, we check the first one. If the integer is 1, we check the second one. We reach 2. Now 2 of course equals the size, which means we are past our threshold, and we actually want to stop this while loop. So if while I doesn't equal to the size of the Wwise bank array, we want to do something. What do we want to do? We want to take the array Wwise banks to load, and we want to load the bank at that specific point. So I, the variable we're using for the while loop, load. However, this is not great because actually before this, we want to check if this was populated at all. This is basically a null check. If this is actually valid, we want to load it. If this is not valid, I don't know, maybe we want to print something, a debug message at some point. Anyway, regardless if this was valid or not, we want to increase the integer. So we do that, we check, and then we add 1. So we go to the next one. Let's go to the level. This is an old one. Let's go to the level. So for now, we have one music event, which is stored in a Wwise SoundBank, and an ambient sound, event, which is stored in an ambience bank. So right now there's nothing loading these banks. So we're going to drag our scene to which we attached the script. And now we click here and we are going to add first the ambience and then the music bank. We're just going to load these for now. Of course, we are not calling the function yet. We're going to do this. Wwise bank loader. And let's see. Yes. So you have the ambience, which is horrible, by the way. And then also the music. Am I ducking the game? Maybe not. Maybe I should. There you go. So now when I speak, I will duck the audio of Godot. Anyway, this is working. And also we want to, of course, we want also to unload. So we're going to create another function, which of course we're going to call onExe3. This is going to be Wwise Banks unloader. And this is still going to be void, but we actually want to call something inside here. And there is a reason. We're going to see that soon. I'm actually going to declare an argument here. And this is how you do it in Godot. Just call it banks to unload. And then we assign this a type. The type is array Wwise bank. So now what we do is pretty much the same we do here. The main difference is that instead of loading, we unload. Of course, now we have an argument. We'd better use it. Okay, so now we can call this function, Wwise banks unloader, right after loading them. Again, just for very quick demonstration. Wwise banks unloader, and we want to unload the Wwise banks to unload. Cool. I'll tell you what, I don't like they were repeating Wwise in both. It's confusing me. Sorry for that. I'm just going to remove the Wwise from the functions. We're using this in Wwise, so what's the point anyway? And then, of course, we also need to remove these from the point where we called set functions. So now, I said we want to load ambience and music and then also remove the music right away. You're going to get an error. That's fine, because you're not supposed to do that. Again, just to see that it works. So you see, there is the ambient sound, but not the music, because we are just unloading it. And then, of course, if we remove, actually, I could have just changed that. Silly me. If we remove the ambience instead, and then we play. But not the ambience. The music plays, but not the ambience. Good. This is really simple. Of course, maybe you would like to put some debug. We are going to cover that as well. So let's remove this from here because it's weird. And actually, let's call this here where it makes sense. Banks unload. Of course, with inside the Wwise banks to unload for now. Okay, so what if you want to do some debug? Well, first, maybe you don't want to see it all the time. So it's a good idea to actually declare another variable var debug, nice and simple, bool, and then 0. So by default, this is false. You can actually put it inside the Wwise bank category. Also, if you want to add a description, you put double hashtags, and then you add anything like tests. No, wait, it was right above. You need to put this right above the variable, of course. Yes, nice and simple. What do we want to do with this debug? Well, let's say we have the bank loader, and we try to load something which wasn't there. This is bad. We want someone to know. So if the Wwise bank we tried to load wasn't actually populated, we want to print. Also, if debug is true, well, we didn't assign anything, so we can't really display it, right? So, but what we can do, we can use the integer. So bank, just like that. Then a nice blank space was not assigned. To load was unassigned. Maybe we also want to know if this was successfully loaded. If debug print bank blank space, and then here this is actually populated because we just checked it. So can do space was loaded. Now we can do the same with the banks unloader. Similar, if this was valid, then we want unloaded. This was unloaded. Else print. Of course, we need to change this. print E to unload, bank number to unload was unassigned. Should be good. Of course, we want to print this only if debug is active. And then again here. Okay. So let's say we are nasty and we add a bunch of empty stuff. This is the instance one. I know it can be a bit confusing because no, this is actually the instance one because this is the level that I'm clicking here. I got confused myself many times. And then of course the debug was done ticked. Reload again. Here we go. Bank 0 was loaded. Bank, it says wrapped 0. Okay, this is missing just a space. We need also the name because we want to print the name here. Bank ambience was loaded. Bank music was loaded. Bank number 2 to load was unassigned. And also, there is a return here. We don't want that. Let's try again. Let's see, you see? 2 was unassigned, 3 was unassigned, and so on and so on. And also, if we move this function from exit tree and we move it here, we're going to see that we're going to also see the unloaded ones. This was unloaded, this one was unassigned, and number 2 was unassigned. Nice. So what's the next step? Why did we make the banks unloader function different from the banks loader one? Well, that's because I wanted to add this thing. Let's say maybe, well, not maybe, you don't want to always unload all the banks you just loaded just because you exited a level, right? We are going to add just this one thing. Should unload all banks, all loaded banks. I know it's a bit convoluted. You can find the name you prefer, probably a better one. Should unload all the banks. This is what? This is a bool, and it starts with 0. So on exit tree, if this is true, we want to unload what? The Wwise banks to load, because we want to unload all of them. Instead, if this wasn't the case, we want to unload only the Wwise banks to unload. We can also add this here, again, only just for testing. So we're going to tick this now. And I want to unload everything actually. Maybe with the debug on. Okay, so everything was, so ambience was loaded and then it was unloaded. And then we also, of course, we had the bunch of nasty ones we can just remove. So this is going to be cleaner. Ambience was loaded, music was loaded, ambience was unloaded, music was unloaded. But what if we remove the music and we remove the tick? Music was loaded, ambience was unloaded. We can still hear the music. Nice. Okay, so we can remove, of course, this thing from here because it's nah. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I hope this video was helpful. Sorry if I maybe lost a bit of time here and there when you speak out loud and try to do things, even things you did yourself. Actually, I had to rewrite this one day, and I think it took me 10 minutes. But yeah, making tutorials just makes everything harder. The pressure. Anyway, again, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please make them. This could be the first video of others. I actually made another script, always in Godot, to handle ambient sounds, always in Wwise. But yeah, that's probably something for another video. Thanks a lot. And again, I hope this was helpful. Ciao.